Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. My name's Tom Sileo. I'm a columnist with the Stream, that's stream.org, and co-author of a new book called Three Wise Men. I want to thank the Friends Health Connection for hosting this event. I also want to thank the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation for their support and all the work that both organizations do for veterans. And I also want to thank Barbara's Books of Chicago. They're a great store to get both books that we're going to talk about today with these two very special guests that I'm just absolutely honored to introduce. We have two. Kyle Carpenter is a Medal of Honor recipient. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he is the author of the book, You Are Worth It, Building a Life Worth Fighting For. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate that. And it's a humbling honor to be with both of you today.
Thank you. The honor's all ours. And my second guest has become a really good friend of mine over these past 3 years. He is also a United States Marine Corps veteran. He is a Gold Star brother of two fallen heroes. And he is my humble co-author on the new book, Three Wise Men, Beau Wise. How you doing, Beau?
Tom, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And Kyle, it's an honor to be on with you, brother, and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Beau.
Yeah, and I can tell everybody that as soon as this possibility came up and Beau heard the name Kyle Carpenter, he couldn't have been more excited. He was like a kid in a candy store that he would get to talk to Kyle. And what an honor this is for all of us. And again, thank you both. I'm going to start out. This is going to be a freewheeling conversation between two Marines, two American heroes. And maybe I thought a good place to start would be with you, Kyle, and just ask you to tell us about, your journey, your early life. I know you're a South Carolinian, how that led you to your eventual place in the United States Marine Corps.
Yeah, so I grew up all over the South. My dad was in business and sales, so naturally kind of moving up the ladder with that. We did move around a lot. Some moves were tough, some were not so tough, but all turned out to be incredible in the fact that I met new people that I never would have. I experienced, different football coaches, different baseball coaches, and all of these just small pieces that, helped give me the foundation that I had growing up in life, along with my incredible parents and family. There's just not enough time in the day in this interview, or really for the rest of my life, that I will be able to give them enough credit. But they've been there from the moment I was born to the moment I woke up in the hospital. But that childhood and that foundation of moving around, experiencing new things, I feel like played an integral part in me allowing myself to commit myself to a life of service, because a life of service is really a life of unknowns. Whether it's as Marines, when we're going to deploy, when you might get hurt, when you're going to get out, whether it's 4 years or 20 years. And so I'm so thankful, even though I didn't know it at the time, that all of those experiences that I had allow me to just go forward and trust that if I worked hard and tried to do good things, it would take me places. And so I joined the Marine Corps in 2009. I was in roughly a year and a half before I went on my second deployment, which was to Afghanistan, my first combat deployment. I guess you could say I made it 4 out of the 7 months there. And on November 21st, 2010, I was injured by an enemy hand grenade. I say enemy because I've got questions before, like, what was it, your grenade? And I'm thinking, well, I hope I'm not getting, recognition for blowing myself up. But I got injured by an enemy hand grenade, and that I guess you could say that either started my journey, those moments on the roof, or when I surprisingly woke up almost 5 weeks later in the hospital. But either way you look at it, my life was irreversibly changed. But as we all know, you can't go backwards. So I'm so thankful that I had love and support when I woke up to start that journey. And at the time, I had no idea where it was leading, and I still really don't. But I'm just thankful that from childhood until now, I've had good Marines around me like Beau, good family members around me to love and support me when I didn't think I could, take that next step forward. So, as you said, thank you for mentioning it. But I've recently wrote a book. Before that, I went to school after I got done my time in the hospital. So now I'm kind of back to figuring out what's the next step and figuring out life like everyone else.
Well, thanks so much for that, Kyle. And I want to ask you more about your Afghanistan deployment coming up here in a second. I'm going to jump to Beau real quick. Beau, you're also from SEC country. You're from Arkansas. Tell us about your upbringing and your family, and of course your two brothers, fallen heroes, Jeremy and Ben.
Yeah, we grew up in South Arkansas in a very, very rural country upbringing. We were all country boys and a country girl at heart. Heather, Ben, Jeremy, and myself. Being the youngest of four, Jeremy was 10 years my elder, and they were larger than life growing up. Jeremy and Ben, and so much older than myself and Heather. And so I got to, tag along. I wasn't really much of a rival, until later when I got close to Ben's size and could wear the same clothes, and I'd steal them and then he'd beat me up and all that. But, very, very wholesome upbringing. Father was a physician. We connected on that right away. Both of our dads are doctors. So, and having a stay-at-home mom that, private school at an early age. And, I think probably sounds pretty similar to Kyle's in many ways. It just, have that tight-knit family. It was kind of our foundation and our lifeline growing up.
Bill, one more quick question, and then I'm going to jump back to Kyle with the same one. Why the Marine Corps? Your brother Jeremy was a Navy SEAL. Ben was Army infantry and then a Green Beret. Why Marine Corps? Why did that appeal to you so much?
Well, with Jeremy being a SEAL, with Ben, very young Green Beret, I'm trying to remember. I think he was on a deployment when I went to Paris Island, if I'm not mistaken. We're pretty close. And being a South Carolinian, I'm sure you probably went to the same place. Kyle, East Coast is the best coast. We always had that Marine legacy in my family. My mom, most particularly my mom's side, her dad was a World War II veteran and served in the Army Air Corps. And her uncle was a Pacific raider in the Pacific campaign, and who was injured in the head in Saipan and lived ricochet round or shrapnel. Eventually, he succumbed to his wounds from a neurological infection shortly after the war. And then her great uncle, my great great uncle, Francis Lyon, who was in Argonne Forest. So we kind of heard these kind of stories and the family legacy growing up, even though there wasn't in the immediate family. And the cousins we grew up with in South Arkansas, Nathan and Jonathan, who eventually went Marine counter intel and then naval aviator and FA-18 pilot. So they were almost as much of an influence, I think, for me as far as learning all about, the different branches of service and the ladder in the Army and the Marine Corps and then the Navy. And so, one day I was just I was on the fence, and I think it was Jeremy and I or Ben and I, we had a conversation where, he said, all right, what do you want to do? What is it that you want to do most? And, I said, I like breaching. I like guns. I really like guns. And, I'm jumping out of planes and stuff. Yeah, it's cool. But, and he was like, well, that really wasn't the most appeal as far as just like the kinetic energy. And he was like, dude, you don't have to go to Buds to do that. He's like, Marine infantry does that, you know, every day. That's the bread and butter. And once I got to SOI, you know, I fell in love with guns, machine, belt-fed ammunition. So 0331 was it for me, and I just wanted as much of that as I could.
Thanks, Beau.
Settle it down. Settle it down. You're gonna make me go back to the recruiting office right now.
Semper Fi, brother.
Hey, so,
And yeah, Kyle, why the Marine Corps? You know, you were very young when you enlisted. Why did the Marine Corps appeal to you so much?
so I won't say, unfortunately, you know, we all have our different paths, but I just didn't have the military background as far as my family, especially specifically the Marine Corps. So it was really just a matter of wanting to do something and commit myself to a bigger purpose than any one individual. And I also wanted, whichever branch I joined. I mean, I went to other recruiters. It didn't help that some of them didn't even stand up to shake my hand when I walked in. So that narrowed down a little bit. But ultimately, you know, I had been an athlete growing up. I had always pushed myself, even in non-physical things, just to be as good as I could and push myself as far as I could. And I wanted something that ultimately would push me to my physical, mental, and emotional limit, uh, to the extent that uh, I would learn something new about myself, and I would be able to find out who I really was. And so, other than those kind of just big, ambitious ideas, you know, I didn't know too much about the military. Of course, I knew there was a risk. We were in a time of two conflicts. But I just knew that even though, again, it was I was going into a life of the unknown, I was confident in doing that because uh, whatever the risk was or whatever was going to happen in my military future was nowhere near as scary as waking up one day as an older man and regretting never have served when I could have. And so I kind of came to those realizations and I signed on the dotted line.
Well, thank you
Right.
both so much. Thank you both. And again, the connection that both of you trained at Paris Island, very famous place that we've all seen in the movies. So I can only imagine how tough it was to get through, and we all appreciate your service and what you did. Now on to some of the tough stuff. Kyle, I'm gonna start with you. Actually, can you tell those watching about the events of November 21st, 2010 in Afghanistan? You were in Helmand Province, correct?
Yes, sir. Helmand Province in Marja, the area of Marja. And I was injured on November 21st, but roughly a day and a half before, my squad and I drew the short straw. We got tasked with a new mission. And that was, again, we were roughly 4 months into our deployment. And, you know, Beau and all the veterans out there will get what I'm saying when I say that when you get over the halfway point of a deployment, and especially when you start looking ahead to preparing for that next unit to come in and relieve you and take over. Just like anything in life, I hope you want to leave it better than you found it. So looking ahead at that next unit coming in, we were wanting to push and expand our area of operation out, therefore pushing out the bad guys, creating stability. Hopefully, you know, what would follow that is building schools, digging wells, and vital infrastructure and societal structure type things like that. So my squad and I, we pushed south. a few villages to the south of our position where we had been living and operating for the past 4 months in an attempt to do just that, essentially take over another compound and another village, put our foot in the ground, and no matter how much fighting came, stay there, hold our ground until we could get more Marine reinforcements down there. We knew that just like the entire deployment, it was going to be bad, but I don't think any of us could really fathom how bad the next 24 to 36 hours was going to be. So we were off to a wonderful start. We got started getting shot at about halfway on the way to that village. And so I guess that was kind of like our warm up for what was to come. We took over the compound, and within the first just little while we were in there, the first grenade attack came. And, I can't speak personally from Iraq, but Afghanistan, at least where we were, was not so much house to house, street to street. It was more field across field, tree line to tree line. And so with that said, grenades, especially hand grenades, we had seen launch grenades out of like a 203 type round once. But as far as hand grenades, thankfully, we had never really gotten close to engage at that distance yet in this deployment. And so the first thing someone said is, "Who's throwing rocks?" And then those rocks started to explode. And so from that moment over the rest of the day, it was a couple of grenade attacks, but mostly small arms fire. Fast forward to the next day on November 21st when I was injured. The only thing I remember from the entire day, except for how I felt physically after I was hit, was at about 7:30 that morning when, again, we started getting attacked. It was the first attack of the day. AK-47s were our alarm clock. I remember rolling over and thinking somewhat to the effect of, well, here we go, another day in Afghanistan. I remember unzipping my sleeping bag and throwing it off of me. The last thing I remember is talking with my buddy and fellow Marine who I was on post with. And anyone not familiar with military terminology listening to this, post is essentially what we call a lookout position. And so myself and a fellow Marine were on top of a roof on this lookout position. And we were going over scenarios of, okay, if the attack comes from this alley or this road, we'll react like, just trying to get somewhat of a head start on if something happens, which kind of is not, you can never really plan in combat. Let's just say that. But we were just trying to do anything we could to help keep those in the compound safe. The next thing I remember, I got hit. I felt like I got hit really hard in the face. My vision immediately went to white and gray static, like a TV with no connection. My ears were ringing extremely loud. And I just was immediately disoriented and thinking, trying to put those pieces together, thinking, okay, well, the last thing I can remember, I know I was in Afghanistan. I think I was on a roof, but, kind of like what could have injured me this bad on a roof, not an IED because I had been laying up there still on post. And so as I was trying to put these pieces together, and this next part will allude to Marine's humor, but I thought, man, what is going on? My buddies are messing with me right now. And I thought that they were pouring warm water all over me. And keep in mind, I was extremely disoriented, so I don't know why this made sense. But I was thinking, like, why are they messing with me? Why are they messing with me? And then that last disoriented piece kind of allowed the other ones to fall into place. And I realized that it was not warm water and it wasn't my buddies, that I was bleeding out from whatever had happened. And so I knew with how tired I was getting, the medical training that we received before we deployed, And unfortunately, all of the casualties I had seen so far on that deployment, kind of all of that knowledge combined, I realized that I don't know what happened, but whatever happened, I'm extremely injured, and these are my last few seconds. And so I thought about my family and how devastated they would be, specifically my mom, when she was informed that I wasn't going to be making it home. I said a quick prayer for forgiveness, and then I faded from consciousness in the world on that rooftop for what I thought was the last time. And I woke up almost 5 weeks later, and the first sight that I opened my one eye that I had left to was red Christmas stockings that my mom had hung and decorated my room at Walter Reed.
Wow. Just tremendous, the way you put that. What a story. And people can read more about it in Kyle's book, You Are Worth It. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but thank you so much for going through that, Kyle, with us. It's, incredible hearing it from you. Beau, you fought in the same district of southern Afghanistan's Helmand Province as Kyle. I'd love to talk more about that, but we have some time constraints. So I would like to move for you when you were in Afghanistan on a separate deployment on December 30th, 2009. If you could briefly tell us what happened that day.
The day before we had gone out, I was part of a combined anti-armor team, and Kyle can tell you very well, Taliban knows what a tow platoon looks like, and they know how devastating a tow platoon is. So when a CAT team, combined anti-armor team, shows up, Taliban usually is on libo, meaning they don't want to participate in that fight. So we had a battalion game plan how to get those the heavy weapon systems in the fight, and everything that we had as a heavy weapons platoon: TOWs, smalls, laws, ATVs, and I know that's a lot of nomenclatures for civilians, but big guns, as you know, can. And we were all, had this big plan to put it together, and we linked up just outside Marja. My district was Nawa, right next door to where Kyle would eventually be. And we were on FOB Spingar, I believe was the name of it. And we were waiting to conduct this assault and get some sleep the night before. It was supposed to be zero, really dark and early morning. And then I woke, and I remember we all woke and saw the sun, and it was kind of confusing. And then eventually we got the op was canked, and or canceled, and we didn't know why. And my platoon commander at the time, Lieutenant Barnes, said, "Hey, we got to head back to Battalion FOB. Battalion's got something for us." So we went south to Geronimo, and then I got the news that that's when they took me to the chaplain's office. And I found out that Jeremy, my oldest brother, who was working with the Central Intelligence Agency in Coast Province, Afghanistan, had been killed by some kind of explosion, and that was all that we knew at the time. Eventually, in time, as the report would come back, once it was finally completed, that Jeremy was one of the CIA 7 that was killed by a suicide bomber attack on FOB Chapman in Coast Province.
Well, thank you, Beau. We all remember Jeremy, brother Jeremy Wise, Navy SEAL turned CIA contractor. And I know this is hard to talk about, but if we fast forward through just over 2 years to January of 2012, just over 9 years ago, your brother Ben had gone back to Afghanistan actually twice since Jeremy was killed. And on January 9th, he was wounded after saving the lives of many civilians in a cave in Balkh Province, Afghanistan. He was wounded 8 to 10 rounds and then flown to Germany, where he fought so hard for 6 days. And you flew over, correct, with Ben's wife, Tracy, you both had to drop everything, take just a grueling journey to Germany to be with Ben on January 15, 2012. Can you recount some of those very difficult moments for us?
Yeah, I had just returned from the second deployment. We went to Garmister District, and it was, I'll say a softer AO than now, most certainly Marja, where Kyle was. But the deployment went for the most part we pretty well. We lost one Marine and I think about him every day, Nicholas Ott, and pray for him. But I got back from Garmister late 2011, and my beautiful new wife and I had just settled into our Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii apartment, and we're just kind of starting our life together. And Ben's battalion got extended, and this was his fourth deployment overall. And he was supposed to come back before Christmas, but unfortunately had to stay. And on January 9th, he was breaching a cave in Beau Province, and as you said, he received 8 to 10 rounds breaching that traveled south to north through the legs and groin. The news came to us in increments because Ben's guys were still in the fight. It was a long, drawn-out battle that took his ODA 1316 a long time to finish off, and then successfully, and they did. And so when we got the news, all we heard at first was that Ben had been wounded, that he had been shot, and it was in the leg. We thought, okay, is that it? And we thought, okay, Ben's all right. He's a fighter. And as Ben's guys started to get back from the field and their after action reports came, we started to find out that it was much more intense, much more, much worse than we thought initially. And so, as you said, I flew to Washington. My wife and I, we flew to Washington, and my wife, who had never met his family, said, got just enthusiastically said, "I'll watch the kids. You guys get out of here." And she stayed, and she watched Ben's son and his 2 stepchildren, and as a result, I think they love her more than me now. And then Tracy and I took off for Germany as quickly as we could. And I had an overnight bag from Hawaii. I didn't have any winter clothes. We lived in Hawaii, So Fisher House and a lot of those foundations, the Green Beret Foundation, and everybody that was helping us out. And I got clothes and just getting us there as quickly as possible, expediting the passport process. And once we got to Germany, we were able to link up with him and be with him in his final moments. And he didn't look anything like himself. And the amputations were bilateral up to the hip. And we just held him and said our goodbyes to him. And on January 15th, he passed away.
Thank you, Beau. I know it's really hard to talk about, and we will always remember Ben and Sergeant First Class Ben Wise, U.S. Army Green Beret. We'll remember him, his family, Tracy, Luke, Ryan, and Kalen. When Kyle, I'm going to go back to you. Give Beau a second here. So after, we're going to talk in a moment about the mental health aspect. You had the physical health was your immediate first challenge, correct? You were wounded. Could you tell us about your wounds and what it was like to suddenly find yourself, you're a war fighter, you're on the battlefield at Walter, and then suddenly you're at Walter Reed. 5 weeks later, you wake up. What were your injuries, and what were those first days like trying to battle through them?
Yeah, good question. My injuries were shrapnel penetrated my brain, so they had to remove that. So I'm still hanging out up there. But shrapnel in my brain, I lost my right eye. My eardrums were blown out. I had a hole through my carotid artery from a piece of shrapnel. I had a collapsed right lung, and both of my arms were extremely damaged. Mostly on the left, it was more just tissue and arteries, but my right arm was fractured in roughly 30 places. And so, and I mean, thankfully and surprisingly, I still don't understand how I didn't have any more internal damage or injuries. But you know, our incredible equipment and body armor is you know, to contribute to that. I mean, my tourniquet was melted onto it. It was just completely vaporized pretty much. But so thank you to all the people out there that might have a part in that, and you know, the long chain of people that help us do what we do. So my injuries were obviously bad, but you know, I still almost feel uncomfortable recounting those. I mean, not even to mention Beau and his family. I mean, I'll never be able to fathom that hardship, but I mean, I'm just so incredibly beyond just inspired that he's out here just getting after it and getting the education and just just the hope and the beautiful side of their journey out as well. So, but you know, especially being on the call with Beau, and also all of those that I almost feel bad recounting my injuries because you know, every day I would go to, you know, open my door to go to therapy, and you know, there would be a quadruple amputee with a smile on his face, and you know, his new baby on sitting on what's left of his legs, cruising to therapy, tackling another day. But you know, those were my injuries, and so when I woke up with them, I'll say first and foremost, um, I'm so thankful that I didn't have more of a mental struggle. You know, we all have those long, dark, and painful nights. But, you know, mine wasn't to the point where I couldn't overcome it by just kind of looking myself in the mirror and saying, you know, hey, let's do this type of thing. But on the flip side of that, it was very daunting to be told after waking up, you know, hey, you have minimum 2 years that you have to stay here before we can, you know, put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And so to know that uh, really it's just a tough lesson and a tough pill to swallow, whether you have a loss in your family as a brother or a son or a husband, or um, you have to realize there comes a moment where you realize that, you know, not that the world doesn't care about you, but the world keeps spinning, and you have to learn how to accept that, to deal with what you're going through. And so, you know, I got injured. All of my friends were in college doing their thing. I knew I was going to be at the hospital for 2 to 3 more years. And physically, I didn't know how I was going to be until I got to those future milestones or moments. You know, I didn't know if I was exactly going to be okay. I didn't know if they were going to be able to give me new teeth because the grenade blew my lower jaw off. And so there's just, again, a life of service, especially after getting injured or having a loss in the family, is just a lot of unknowns. But I think ultimately, because of the love and support of my family, my fellow Marines, and those that wore the uniform, regardless of the branch. I mean, I had Air Force doctors, Army doctors, and, you know, along with my family's love and support, Walter Reed is just the most incredible place on the face of this earth. I mean, they truly care about you, not just as a person or a patient, but as a fellow service member. And so, those two support systems uh, gave me, again, the foundation to, to, to give me what I needed so I could do everything that no one else could do for me, with more of a positive attitude than not. And so I think, with my Walter Reed family, my real family, and the third part is, as Marines, you tell us to go run through that wall, and, we're not the smartest bunch either, but we'll do it, no matter what it is, whatever we got to tackle, however many have to get hurt to go help that family, whatever it is, we'll do it. So when I woke up, I think I was just not in an overwhelmed matter, but just, okay, I was told I have 2 years and say 20 surgeries till I get out of here. Okay, bam, I have a goal. I want to sit up in bed now. Okay, I know if I can sit up in bed, I can work on hanging my feet off the edge of my bed. If I can hang my feet off the edge of my bed, I can work on standing. If I can stand, I can take a step. If I can take a step, I can walk. And then I can eventually, maybe, hopefully one day run. And so I think that I was just so focused on those small goals that, every day it was, okay, I got therapy today, or I got a surgery today, or one of those rare days off from anything that I had to do. Whatever it was, I think I was just almost on like a 24-hour ahead path of vision. And, probably because I was halfway medicated, but by the time I got done with all of those small steps and just looking at either the day to day or the week to week, but never really any further than that, it almost allowed me to kind of compartmentalize my world and to be able to tackle those without getting too overwhelmed. And so I don't know how I got in that mindset. I really just don't know, but I'm so thankful I did, because any other mindset, and I did see the other mindsets at Walter Reed. I saw that, and first of all, before I say this next part, struggle, whether injuries, mental, physical, or emotional struggle, should be the last thing that we ever compare between each other. Because someone out there has always done more. There's those that have done less. There are those that you couldn't imagine the worst days they've been through. And there's some that haven't faced much adversity. So it's a very tricky, deal to compare hardships, especially when people heal in their own time and ways. And so I'm not saying this next part to compare. It was just more, I feel like you can learn something from everyone you encounter in life, good or bad. And I saw that some guys that, might have just had a really bad broken leg, or, might have just had that one eye injury, but nothing else. And of course, that's plenty enough. But I saw that even though they didn't have the same injuries as me, their mindset, I was still somehow recovering faster and better than them. And, Beau knows this, and a lot of service members that are listening know this, but your mind and your body is so much stronger than you ever thought possible and that you could ever imagine. And so I just think, because of my good foundation, people around me, and our history as Marines. We talked about Parris Island earlier, standing on those yellow footprints. They don't tell you, hey, go jump on that grenade, or they don't tell you, go run into that burning building or whatever it is. They tell you the courageous history and legacy of the Marines that have come before us, and the rest takes care of itself. When you hear stories like that, 15-year-olds that charged the beaches of Iwo Jima, the Marines that were in the Argonne Forest, unfathomable things that they did. And they either got killed or they came back and they couldn't talk about the shell shock. They had to get a job and continue on with life. So much of what we go through is just mindset and telling ourselves that we can do it, and that, even if you can't tell yourself confidently, I can do this, you can just say, I'm not going to let this defeat me. So it was a lot of things, but I'm just so thankful that my struggle was more physical, because, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I could have handled 3 years in the hospital and physical rebuilding of my body, and, the severe mental side of things that so many service members also go.
Thanks so much for that, Kyle. And it's a perfect segue into what I was going to ask Beau. Beau, and again, like you said, Kyle, this is not to compare in any way. And I think that's a great point that you bring up, that everyone's experience is different, and how they deal with it is different. And we shouldn't compare and contrast. It's just about telling those stories. Beau, so you didn't have any physical injuries from serving in Afghanistan, although I think many, including me, would argue that the grief you've been through, I'm sure hurt as much or more as anything could physically. Can you talk a little bit more about what Kyle jumped into about the mental health aspect? Because, you are one of only a handful of American service members who's lost two or more brothers in combat. And I know you talk about it. We wrote about it in our book, Three Wise Men, about some of your darker moments. How did you, arrive at that dark place and then pick yourself up and find a way out?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, just let me say off the bat, Kyle, in regards to what you were talking about earlier, I just want you to know that Ben was my first inspiration to keep fighting. As Tom said, he fought for 6 days. Every breath was impossible, and when he was, getting epinephrine every 60 seconds, he just kept fighting, like you did. And that's right there is my inspiration. If Paige, and you are, in my mind, the highest caliber of patriot, the highest breed, man. Really, I can't tell you again what an honor this is for me. But that right there is my inspiration, and familiarizing, I think, first of all, and Kyle already pointed this out, that the Marine Corps is huge on heritage. I mean, you're reciting, from the beginning in Parris Island, from the golden footprints forward, reciting that heritage. And warrior case studies, like everything from like McMap, the Marine Corps Martial Arts program, and everything. It's always like warrior cultural studies and warrior case studies. And I think reviewing stories like Kyle's, the guys that can, go through what he's been through and just pick himself up and just one day at a time. And those little things, that can help put things in perspective. And like you said, don't compare your situation to anybody else's. Everybody mourns differently, everybody grieves differently, and everybody deals with stress differently. When we buried Jeremy, and then almost simultaneously, Ben and I went back to our respective units in Afghanistan. The deployment was over and we came home, and I went to go visit Ben and Tracy in Washington. And we're walking down the street in Tacoma and going to this restaurant to have a beer and a Reuben, or what it bratwurst or whatever. And, I'm like spouting off about the food and the beer, because for me, even though Ben was my brother, 100% genetically about as identical as you can get, and very similar in personality actually as well. Ben's walking down the street and just dead silent, and I'm like, often, when the wheels touched down in K-Bay, the deployment was over for me. That was it. And granted, my deployment wasn't nearly as kinetic as his was, I don't think, or I know. But we're walking down the street, and his eyes are up top, and he's scanning rooftops, in Tacoma, Washington, and I had to like snap him out of it, like, Ben, we're home. We're home, brother. You know, he's, yeah, you're right. And so, and as far as like approaching the moments, what you're talking about, Tom, um, I mean, that would, well, shoot, that pretty much sums it up right there. Just kind of, adhering to everything that they taught me early on. And, you know, as we, you know, we wrote in the book, you know, they were always pushing me to grow up, to mature, and like pick up the fight one day and be a better man tomorrow than you are today. You know, you don't have to be Mahatma Gandhi tomorrow. Just one day, you know, one day at a time, every step, all those baby steps, and recovering, you know, emotionally, and getting to a point where I couldn't have talked about it. And I could not talk about it. And I could talk about it to Marines, guys like Kyle or my 1-3 brothers or his 2-9 brothers. And, you know, but, or Green Berets even, or SEALs, but, you know, going home and being able to just, you know, you don't have to, you know, let out everything out to your wife, but steel sharpens steel. And I think as far as the emotional dimension of recovery, all the resources that we have now, I mean, there's a number of them, Mission 22, Courage to Call, De-Stress, and all those guys that are doing amazing work and connecting veterans to make sure they stay connected. You know, you might get your honorable discharge, but once a Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fi.
Absolutely. Should add the Friends Health Connection, which is hosting this event so generously. They do all kinds of work to empower veterans and assist veterans, both in employment and physical health and mental health. Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, of course, everyone knows what they've done, and they've helped the Friends Health Connection do this important work for veterans. And this kind of, I wish we had obviously many more hours, because I think all three of us could go on talking all day if we could. But I'm going to ask one final question that's a bit long-winded to each of you, but I think it all ties together. You know, we talked about this work, this important work for veterans, and both of you now are not only veterans, one of the most revered communities in our country, and for good reason. But you know, Kyle, you're a Medal of Honor recipient, one of the most special communities there is. And Beau, of course, you're a Gold Star family member. Your brother Ben, Silver Star recipient. Your brother Jeremy has a star on the CIA memorial wall and earned the Intelligence Star. So now that both of you are part of these, you know, special communities, I'm going to make an assumption and say that both of you feel a responsibility. And as you know, Kyle, you worked on your book, You Are Worth It, and Beau on Three Wise Men, both of which are available from Barbara's Books of Chicago, which is generously participating in this event as well. Kyle, why did you decide to tell your story? And I'm sorry, I don't have your co-author's name in front of me, but work with someone to tell that story. And I'm going to assume that a lot of it has to do with helping other veterans.
Absolutely. And I would go beyond and say the reason I waited the many years that I did, because I got out of the hospital, got injured in 2010, got out of the hospital in 2013. But I waited all of these years because I was hoping and assuming that, you know, my book would help veterans just because of me being a veteran, a Marine, getting injured. But I waited as long as I did, and I took the over 2 years to write it because throughout my journey, things have happened, just moments in time that at the time were just that. You know, they were a life experience for this 2 minutes on this one day. But with time, healing, self-reflection on those moments that impacted me, they evolved into life perspective. And so I waited as long as I did because I realized through some of these moments that, okay, I'm talking to this gang member or this homeless person, and we've not only connected, but we are sharing a special moment, and they are telling me about their scars and their rough life growing up on the street, or they're telling me that they've thought about taking their life because of their extreme mental hardships that they're suffering, which I'll never be able to comprehend. People wanting to connect with me or thinking I can help them or whatever it is. But what I took from those is struggle is the one common thread throughout every single person on this earth. I believe even more than, race, religion, or creed, or anything you want to put a title on it. We have all struggled, and we will all continue to struggle. And I realized through all of those moments that struggle is that bridge that can connect us. And it doesn't matter how you got those scars or where you came from. All that matters is that you can relate to that person that's hurting. And so I had a few of these light bulb moments, and I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to take a lot of time and thought on this book, and I'm going to essentially just write my story and all of those moments that impacted me, but tweak the terminology a little bit and the verbiage. And, I can take a story about the military, change up a few words and the angle of approach, I guess. And, I just wanted to convert everything I have been through into words that anyone, I tried to keep in my mind, I want from a Fortune 500 company CEO to a person living on the street, unfortunately, to be able to pick this up and not just be able to read it and understand it, but be able to actually take lessons or, I guess almost a self-help book. Take the things that I've been through. I didn't want it to preach to anyone. I just wanted, hey, here's what I went through. Here's how I handle it, good, bad, or indifferent. And hopefully this just helps. I think everything's about perspective. And I just wanted to write something that might help shift someone's perspective just enough within their own situation that they could get through whatever they were going through. And just to remind people that, you don't have to know where you're going. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know how to fix the situation you're in. Like Beau said, all you got to do is, take those small steps and just, do what you know and just stay persistent. And, it really, again, going back to what I said about mindset, just knowing that if you stay positive, try to be a good person and do good things for people in your life and those around you, I promise you, it might take a day, it might take a month or the rest of your life, but you will make it to the light at the end of that tunnel. And you can not only make it to the light at the end of the tunnel, but you can do it with a smile on your face. And so just to tell people really that it's okay to struggle, and no matter what it is, you can get through it.
Thanks so much, Kyle. It's so inspiring. And title of the book, You Are Worth It. Such a great title. I know a little something about trying to come up with book titles, and I always thought that was such a fantastic title and so inspiring to people. And Beau, working on, like Kyle said, it took him some time, obviously, to get to the place where, he wanted to tell the story. I did chuckle a little bit, Kyle, when you mentioned the military jargon, because Beau and I went back and forth so many times on, he would, we'd be in the middle of a conversation and he would use an acronym and I would say, wait, you got to stop. I have no idea what you're talking about.
One of the
reader certainly won't either. So we had to do that as well. But
Kyle, I specifically remember the question, what is BAMSIS? And I'm like, oh, sorry, we use it for celebration.
Yeah. So Beau, I mean, why did you want to connect with a civilian like me and work on on a book, especially about, you know, two of the biggest tragedies that anybody could ever go through.
Well, Tom, first of all, let me just say that you were the perfect co-author, and I'm so grateful to have had you for this situation. And you touched on one of the minor reasons that I needed a co-author is only guys like Kyle would have been able to read it had I written it, like, you know, JTAC and acronyms and all that stuff. But secondly is, you know, when we started, you remember, you know, I think that over the last 2 years and change that I've gotten emotionally able to talk better than I was 2 years ago, and just staying at the daily grind. And this has kind of helped me. It's been a good therapy for me. And, you know, it started with, you know, what we talked about, the journals that make up less than 1% of the book probably, but having that outlet kind of prepared me. So when you reached out and said, oh, you know, let's do a book honoring Jeremy and Ben for Gold Star members, family members, and for veterans and everybody. And, you know, it just, it seemed like the right thing to do. And having somebody as professional, as amazing, and as supportive as yourself, and most importantly, such a devoted patriot, Tom, thank you for working so diligently in your field and preserving legacies like Jeremy and Ben's and, you know, Captain Groberg and guys like Kyle. I mean, I have the highest admiration for what you do. And you know, I had a lot to say. It's so much to say that I didn't really know how to talk about to guys other than Kyle. Not being able to talk to my wife, which is my flaw, not hers, even when she was trying desperately to get me to talk. And now I'm finally getting to that point where she can tell, you know, now, you know, all right, hey, you're holding something in. Yeah, you're right. And, you know, and just let it out, you know, whatever it is. You know, it could be I crushed the loaf of bread on the way home from the grocery store, whatever, the minor things, you know, just not and being able to talk. What's that?
You better not forget the bread on the way home.
I know, right? But, you know, from the little things to the big things, and, you know, not downplaying it, as you know, Kyle, that we minimalize things as veterans. And, you know, neither you or me wants to be the guy to drop drop my pack, right? You don't want to be the guy falling out of the hike. I don't want to be that guy. And so that breaking that cultural stigma and being able to say, hey, brother, I'm hurt. I got something on me. You got a minute? And I think so the book has done wonders for me, and hopefully it does something. Just one veteran, you know, just one brother, one sister, it'll all be worth it.
Well, thanks, Beau. And again, the book is our book is called Three Wise Men, and Kyle's book is called You Are Worth It. They're both available from Barbara's Books of Chicago. We want to thank them again, and we especially want to thank the Friends Health Connection again for hosting this event and for all the work they do for veterans, and the Christopher and Dana Reed Foundation for supporting their efforts as well. Beau and Kyle, I'm sitting here pinching myself. I can't believe that I've had the chance to talk with both of you. I have so much admiration for you both, as I'm sure every single person watching this does. And I want to thank you both for not only your sacrifices, but your willingness to talk to other veterans and just talk to everyday Americans about the struggles and also overcoming those struggles so you can help other people. It means, I think, a lot to everyone. And again, thanks to you both. Beau, you're a big Arkansas Razorbacks fan, as everyone can see. So go Hogs. Kyle, South Carolina, right? Gamecocks?
Yeah.
All right. So go Gamecocks. And when they play every year,
They've stolen a few coaches from us before, I believe.
Do what?
I said, I think you guys have stolen a couple coaches from us.
Yeah, honestly, the way our seasons have been going, it doesn't really matter. We
Same here. Sorry. We'll get there.
There's always next season. There's
Right.
always next season.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both.
Yeah, thank you very much too. And just like Beau said, Thank you for being such a patriot. It's comforting and really amazing to know that we have guys like you on our side. And I know Beau wrote this obviously for his family and his self, to to almost as a way of recovery, but also what y'all both have done. And Beau, thank you. You just y'all have put a tangible obviously difficult but very beautiful example of not only true courage and sacrifice, but people can pick something up and they have something now that they can read words to truly try to, even in the smallest way, grasp and understand. And a book makes it real. And y'all have given everyone an example of a beautiful family that just loved and cared for this country so much that they gave so much. And so I just think what y'all have done is too amazing for words. So I'm sure it was very difficult at times, but Beau, you're the man. Thanks for doing that. Again, it's an honor to be with you, and I'm glad our paths crossed. Tom, I want to keep going with things. I'm sure we can
Absolutely.
do together later on. But Beau, man, I got to get your number, and we got to get together. Maybe not every time.
Man. Means so much coming from you. It's really, the honor is mine, Kyle. Really. And like you said, I'm grateful I did have you, Tom, because as Kyle pointed out, we'll run through a brick wall chewing crayons along the way. We're not the brightest bunch, so so having guys like you and Roxanne, thank you so much for hosting this.
Thanks to all of you. This is going to touch many lives, so thank you. Thanks to all three of you.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Thanks, Roxanne. This was
Beyond words.
awesome.
Thank you.